It's Levy Grail time for the Cowboys, Niners, and Saints. No postseason, but we'll tell you why you should be optimistic for the future today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5.
Joe, happy Christmas Eve, happy day before a couple of big-time AFC showcase games, which we're going to pick in segment 3 so that we can go officially on the record for our picks, which we pick every game throughout the season. Happy Levy Grail Day. I know you love the poem. Are you tired of the poem?
No, I think it's cool that we have an opportunity to pay homage to Marv Levy.
Which is a perfect chance for us to set the table for maybe Cowboys, 49ers, or Saints fans who are not familiar with the Levy Grail and the poem. Marv Levy gave the recitement of who did the poem, whose authentic works is the poem.
That it's unknown. It's a Scottish. It's hard to know. I don't think anybody actually knows.
Scottish poem.
Yeah,
and the poem is meant to galvanize the troops. And Marv Levy, after one of the Super Bowl losses that the Bills had in their stretch of runs where they had 4 straight AFC championships, gave the speech to his team to galvanize them to pick up the pieces and get ready for what is next. And we are going to do the same for Cowboys fans, 49ers fans, and Saints fans here. And Joe, I will pass the baton to you since you're the Bills fan. It's only right for you to tell these fan bases to fight on, my men.
Yeah, it's a Scottish ballad is what they call it. I don't know who wrote this thing, but as you said, fight on, my men.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am hurt, but I am not slain. I'll lay me down and bleed a while. Then I'll rise and fight again. Dallas Cowboys time here. And Kyle, you been paying attention to these Dallas Cowboys? Boy, I thought they were done.
I thought they were cooked.
They got, and they are. They're not going to the postseason. They've been eliminated, but they got killed by the Eagles. They got killed by the Texans. They fall to 3-7. Lifeless football operation. They said, you know what? We're going to rise and fight again right now. We're going to win 4 out of the next 5. They beat the Commanders, a playoff team, 34-26. They beat the Bucks last week, 26-24. They go to Carolina as road dogs and win 30-14. Mike McCarthy said, I'd like to continue after 3 12-win seasons as your head coach here in Dallas.
Yeah, this team, through it all, has a chance to finish with a winning record, which in itself, relative to how long you had not had Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott starts 8 games this year, did not play anywhere near the level that he did last year anyway. And some of that's because of what the team did and didn't have, because they needed to figure out a contract extension for Dak Prescott. They needed to figure out the contract extension for CeeDee Lamb. And all of those storylines were very prevalent for Dallas throughout the offseason. And here you are. And unfortunately, you have a year that's come and gone, and you'll rue the missed opportunities perhaps. But they've come to life. And the way that they've played the last month, 4-1 in this stretch, win over Washington, who they now get to play at home week 18 for a Commanders team that potentially has a playoff berth wrapped up. What are you playing for at that stage? It's a decent question to ask. They get Philly as a draw this week with Jalen Hurts currently in concussion protocol. Who knows? Like, you might blink and this season's going to come and go. And we alluded to a couple of teams in the AFC that were like that, like Cincinnati and potentially Miami. With that, it's like, man, this season's really been hard. We haven't lived up to expectations. Oh, wait, we can win 9 games.
It's crazy, dude. Rico Dowdle's going to mess around and have 1,000 yards rushing this year.
Yeah, you know what? I had to concede and stop giving them Ashton Genty in my mocks for 30-13. I'm like, I can't sit here with a straight face and give them Ashton Genty with Rico Dowdle, this rushing attack coming to life a little bit.
Dude, we might have 18 1,000-yard rushers in the NFL this year.
Crazy. It is crazy.
What happened here, Kyle Crabbs?
EPA per play on rush attempts it's not important. If teams are going to give it to you, it doesn't matter.
EPA per play is higher on passes. We should never run the ball. Never throw the ball to running back.
And when you call runs, never actually pass the ball. Just scramble with it.
Oh, God. You know what's crazy is DeAndre Swift and Ramondre Stevenson might not get there as our 1,000-yard running backs.
Right.
So, Dallas, there's a lot, I think, in play here. I mean, you won 12 games the last 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously had a lot of injuries. There's some offensive line talent here to be interested in. I think you have done a good job of salvaging this year, and that you could feel the conversations are so much different right now than they were middle of the year, and feel like, hey, get your Micah Parsons thing figured out, continue to add to your defense. Maybe it's just a lost year and you're right back into this thing as a contender in the East in 2025.
I think there's also probably things that were issues for the team when they were winning 12 games were issues for them again this year, right? Like the run defense for Dallas has been a thing for a while. And, you had this wonderful emergence of DeMarvion Overshown at linebacker. He unfortunately goes down with an injury.
Yeah.
But I think you look at that position. I think you look at what's in front of him. I think you look at the fact that you're averaging 4.8 yards per carry allowed with 23 touchdowns. I'm not being negative right now. I'm saying this was a thing that was an issue when you won 12 games. And now it's an issue for you again. Like, when you have a disappointing season, it does force you to sit down and have a little bit more honest conversation
100%
about the issues at hand. So I think this season can pull that out of Dallas. Let's have an honest conversation about our fronts and our run defense and the size of our front seven. Let's have an honest conversation about the non-CeeDee Lamb weapons in the passing game, because they were so CeeDee-centric last year, but they won 12 games, so it didn't matter. But now, again, it's an issue, and it does matter because you bet on CeeDee and you paid CeeDee. And, yeah, you saw Rico Dowdle's emerged, and Jalen Tolbert's got 6 touchdowns this year. But I think there's a lot of room for improvement there if you sit down and have the honest conversations about what was an issue when you won 12 games and didn't matter, and then it mattered again and you won a lot less games.
I think that's an excellent call out, because that formula of run the ball, stop the run, if they can add that to the rest of what's going on with a very potent passing offense with a opportunistic pass defense with pass rushers and ball hawks, it's like, okay, yeah, you could be a good football team. And Dallas is going to be able to regroup and do all this as a third place team.
Right.
So I know that we sometimes make fun of getting into schedule stuff, but I think this is an example of where it really, really matters, where you're floating opponents. You're going to play third place in the NFC West, third place in the NFC South, and third place in the AFC East. Those are good draws as opposed to a top 2 team in those respective divisions.
Yeah, it'd be a real shame to play the Jets next year, right?
Yeah, or look at the NFC South and you're probably going to get what?
New Orleans or Carolina?
New Orleans or Carolina
versus Tampa. I wouldn't want to play Tampa.
Or Tampa or Atlanta, who are decent teams. And then the NFC West is going to be not the Rams, right? You're going to get probably Arizona.
Probably going to get Arizona.
Okay. Yeah, it's a better draw, especially when you know that the Commanders and the Eagles are the teams that you're contending with. They're going to play tougher opponents. So I think they're probably going to be just fine in 2025. But that coaching decision is going to be interesting. You think they stick with Mike?
I do think they stick.
I think so as well.
And I think you could do a lot worse than I know. The promise of the hidden door and what's behind the hidden door is always very tempting. But I respect the way Mike McCarthy's got this team figured out. There's some teams out there, your starting quarterback goes out and you can't get 10 first downs in a game.
Yeah.
Me. So I respect the way that 4-1 the last 5 games and offensively Cooper Rush the way he played just the other night against Tampa. I know I said I don't want to play Tampa next year. They just beat Tampa. So credit to Dallas for extending what could have been like a very ugly season. This season very easily could have ended up 5-12. And instead they've got a chance to run it real strong here at the end. And I think that's great for them.
All right, we shift our attention to the San Francisco 49ers on the other side of it. Very trying year for San Francisco. We'll break that down next. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. FanDuel has given you so many different ways to win. I love betting on which players will hit the over on stat projections and building parlays. It's thrilling. It just makes it that much more fun to watch games. You got Christmas slate. We got Thursday night. We got Saturday games. Get yourself some action at FanDuel and make the games even that much more exciting. And not only can you bet on who will win the game, FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
San Francisco 49ers. I think the easiest thing that you could say for a reason to be optimistic as a San Francisco 49ers fan is you're going to get a lot of players back next year that were not healthy to play for you this year. You look at Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams the past stretch of time. Let's see. We've got defensively Dre Greenlaw trying to come back. Can't see. He's started the last 2 games, couldn't get past halftime, right? Dealing with injury and coming back from an injury. You've got Javon Hargrave. If you put those players, just those players that I mentioned, on 80% of the teams across the league, are any of them not in the top 8 players on that roster?
Yeah, no doubt. Big time talent.
So that's and the viability long-term of some of these guys is a different question, right? Like Trent Williams at this stage of his career is a 36-year-old tackle. I think it's fair to say, well, will we ever see the best version of Trent Williams ever again? And I get that, but the 80%, 75% of the best of Trent Williams, if that's what you got next year, I'd take that over Jalen Moore at left tackle. And Christian McCaffrey, I know, is getting older as well. And I think the good news for him is he's only going to be 29 next year, which is kind of crazy to think about with how long he's been in the league and how impactful he's been. Not a lot of tread on the tires this year. Maybe he comes back a little fresher next year. Maybe the addition of Isaac Guerrero. Do you exercise your restricted free agent rights on Jordan Mason? You can have depth in that room. Obviously, some of those guys were effective running the ball, even without Christian. So I know some of the names that we invoked are players that are not in the prime of their careers anymore. But having them back, I think would still be welcomed additions to the 49ers to be optimistic next year will be better than this year.
I know we have to be optimistic, and my intent in what I'm about to say is optimistic.
Uh-oh.
But look, dude, the San Francisco 49ers have come through one of the most trying years an organization has ever had. And that, of course, starts with losing the Super Bowl and then just a nightmare offseason where you have contract disputes from your best players and then they get hurt. Christian McCaffrey with all of a sudden like 2 Achilles that are both a problem. Ricky Pearsall gets shot. You have, like we mentioned already, all the injuries, the very tragic situations with players like Charvarius Ward. It's like, man, anything that could go wrong for this team kind of did. And there's got to be some optimism that this is going to be over. And you know that you've got a highly respected head coach that's taking you to 2 Super Bowls, that you do have talent, and you obviously have resources to build in the offseason, but this is not a situation where you need a billion different things to get yourself back into the conversation. Like you had a lost year where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And I think San Francisco's going to be right back in it. They got big decisions to make, and obviously they want to improve and all that type of stuff. But this doesn't feel like they're far away from being right back in the mix of being a contending team.
I want to make a point, too, for San Francisco, knowing full well that it's not applicable to every player on the roster. But they played 3 playoff games in 2021. And then they played 3 playoff games in 2022. And then they played 3 playoff games in 2023.
It's a lot.
It's almost an extra season's worth of games.
Yeah.
It's more than half a season's worth of extra games in the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And that extra wear and tear, you see what every team looks like. Look at Houston right now. You thought they were bad with injuries coming into this week, and then the Tank Dell news came out, and Jimmy Ward's going to miss the rest of the season, and I think they had another offensive lineman go down. So attrition's a real thing, and for them to have 3 years in a row of 3 playoff games on top of the rigors of a full regular season anyway, it's an element that you won't have this year because you're eliminated from postseason contention. But I think it's a little bit of extra context for why this team felt like they're so bad. They've had the same nucleus by and large. They've ran it back with the same nucleus of talent. And I don't think it's a surprise that extra workload has yielded some regression. Some guys are looking like they're slow. Like Debo looks like he's slowing down a little bit. It's been a lot. They've had a lot of games, and it's a great problem to have. But at some point, it all adds up, and I think it just added up for San Francisco this year.
Won't be long before they're right back in it. Dude, they've had some young players as well. And Dom Puny at guard has really stepped up. How do you not love Juwan Jennings? It's been a great opportunity for him to emerge in his role.
Imagine being surprised Malik Mufasta is a baller for them. A great emergence that he's been for them too.
Yeah, I mean Jair Brown looks like he's pretty decent as his running mate. They got some good reps out of Renardo Green this year. It's just there's that when you layer that with everything that's coming back and what this team already has, I think they're going to be okay.
So the one thing we haven't talked about is their quarterback situation. Was that intentional for you to not bring it up to this stage since this is an optimistic and there's a contract? I don't envy San Francisco fans for the discourse that's about to come because I lived it last offseason, right? Not the most impressive physical tools. Is he a product of the scheme? How do you quantify that? People are saying, offer him 4 years, $120 million, give him a fully guaranteed contract. You'll get laughed out of the building for a contract like that. That's a spit in the face in your quarterback. So don't suggest that. But I think the pairing of Brock with Kyle Shanahan has proven that it can win a lot of games. And I know the last, 20 game sample size for them hasn't been great. Where do you stand on Brock? With an optimistic, because you could take it either way. You're like, well,
yeah, he's been to 2 NFC Championship games. He's played in the Super Bowl. He's had big moments. I'm nervous, dude. I'm very nervous. I think you've looked at a lot of quarterback contracts across the NFL, and whether it's Kyler Murray or Geno Smith or Daniel Jones, there's a lot of questions, right? And it can be difficult. I think the good news for San Francisco is they do have cap space. They're going to go into this offseason with $66 million in cap space. They can do what they need to get done here. But Brock's always, he's got a good offensive mind. He's had good talent around him to allow him to play as well as he has. I worry that there's limiting factors with Brock, but at the same time, he's had a lot of success. So I've said repeatedly, I think Brock Purdy's a very hard quarterback for me to land on. Mm-hmm. But they have cap space and they have some success with this guy. And they know him the best, so they should be able to make the right decision.
Right. I would say too, I think a season like this can be a really nice catalyst of growth for Brock Purdy. Not having the low-hanging fruit of CMC and your best man beater in coverage, which is Brandon Ayuk. Like it's forced, I think, the degree of difficulty in which you've had to play to ramp up a little bit. And I think for a player that, I want to say he didn't have it easy, but man, he had a great supporting cast.
Yeah.
Man, he's got the best play caller in football at his disposal, offensively. And from a play design and play call perspective, for that 2022-2023 stretch, I like the fact that he got a little bit of diversity. And maybe you don't do the contract because you want a little bit more clarity. You get a franchise tag at your disposal. If you want to do that, you can extend this out a little bit to get a little bit more clarity on what he's going to ultimately become. And I might do that just because this year was kind of the adversity year and see how he comes back from that. I think is a really interesting strategic decision that San Francisco can make should they choose to make it.
Yeah. Okay. New Orleans Saints, and we got 2 games to pick here on the other side of it. Folks, stick with us. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30 million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes, and they have Venmo. I'm a big Venmo guy. It makes it even more simple. And look, there's a big slate of games. You got Christmas slate. You've got a full slate on Saturday. Get in on the action. Check out which players they have at more or less certain statistical projections and pick what you like and see if you can win as well. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was paying for, and Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of those best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using. I've saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
Joe, I owe you an apology.
Wow. Okay.
Kamari Ramsey is going back to school.
Okay.
So for anybody who's not familiar, Joe and I, on days in which we don't have major holidays, usually take the Wednesday and do a bunch of draft prospects. And I obviously, as the lead of the 33rd team, am really in the weeds on this draft class. I'm close to 100 guys written up and really enjoying the process of getting to know this draft class. But Joe doesn't have to worry about it. So I'm like, hey, why don't we do X, Y, and Z this week? And Joe's usually like, are any of these guys underclassmen? I only want to watch the guys for sure until we know for sure who's in the class. And Kamari Ramsey gave me some kickback on. He's like, this guy's a redshirt sophomore. Is he coming out? I'm like, dude, he's a stud. We got to watch him. So we did. And you've invested time on a 2026 player. And I'm sorry.
I think Kamari Ramsey watched Malachi Starks and Xavier Watson, realized there's only so many places safety's going to go high in this draft, and said, hey, I got to get some interceptions, man.
Yeah, I think that'll help in a big way. But going back to USC, and I've had three 3 total players I've done write-ups on have gone back.
Aller, Ramsey, and who?
Mansour Delane, corner from Virginia Tech.
Could have told you that fake name. Obviously, he wasn't going to come out.
Transferring to LSU, which I think is a great move.
Oh, there you go. That's where corners go. I mean, Virginia Tech to LSU. You want to talk about a pipeline of corners, man? It's pretty cool.
Right. So that is official as of a couple of days ago. LSU football 3 days ago put out path to the boot for Mansour Delane. So those are the 3 that have bit me thus far. Let's bite into the Saints. Let's do it. I think the most promising thing that I have to say about the Saints and their future as a team is you've admitted that you had a problem. And that's the first step to making some seismic changes. The entire Dennis Allen farce was the culture of Sean Payton. And we want to hold on to the culture of Sean Payton's New Orleans Saints football team. Those days are gone. They're gone. And to let go of that and now be able to assess where you're at, look at the team, move forward, I think is the thing that Saints fans should be most excited about.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you had a lot of injuries this year, dude. Like Olave, Shaheed.
Don't have any depth.
Ramczyk. Those are like the
Kamara's
cornerstones. Yeah, it's like cornerstone players for your team. And when you don't have a ton of depth, it's hard to make it through injuries. How about the emergence of Brian Brzee?
That was next on my list.
Yeah, I want to make sure we get to that because defensive tackles can sometimes take a year. And he's come through, man. I think he's going to be an answer for them.
What leads the team in sacks? 7.5.
Yeah.
Chase Young for the low sack totals, and I know he's on a 1-year deal. He leads the team in quarterback hits. He's one of the most pressure. If you're a subscriber of pressure is greater than sacks, that was a good signing from a pressure standpoint. Now, from a sacks standpoint, you'll have a chance to make a choice if Mickey Loomis is going to continue their cap management. Is that a player you want to bring back because you've had him in-house and he's been disruptive and you want to lean into that? Now, they're going to have to make some hard decisions on expiring talent as far as expiring contracts and some older players like a Cam Jordan. But I think the fact that you have a couple of those kinds of players who maybe there's an incentive for the player, like does Cam Jordan retire? I think if he does, maybe that can help your cap situation because you don't have a lot of players that have a ton of flexibility as far as just parting ways with this offseason for significant savings.
Yeah, and they'll make those choices for sure. Granderson continues to look good, and they paid him already. Pete Warner continues to play well. Kool-Aid McKinstry is a draft pick that I thought pretty highly of. I think him getting some playing time this season is going to be helpful for him to be able to settle into a major role for this team. And I mean, that's a bunch of players on defense that position you to be, to kind of have your nucleus in place and you just kind of build around it. Meanwhile, Fuaga on offense has been really good at left tackle. Penning's been better. And we'll see what happens with that whole overall situation. But, it's like they still have some good starters, they've never not had it, but like too many injuries and obviously some depth issues. And how about just like the division that they play in?
Open.
It's open, dude. It's open. That's kind of been the problem, though.
Yeah, it's been temptation because it's open. So let's just let's add a few. Let's add Chase Young this year.
Yeah,
that'll be the thing that gets.
Yeah, we can win 9 or 10 games and win this division, which is probably true. True.
9's gonna win it.
Probably right. So you get to host a playoff game and all that. So
yeah. I think the other thing too, just as a quick shout, because I know we got to get to the 2 games. I think you got a good return for Marshawn Lattimore, the trade deadline. This helps set you up with some success too.
Boy, when he was healthy for like 5 plays against Philly, you were like, oh yeah, this is the guy they needed to go up against AJ Brown. And then he just, out with a hamstring. Wow.
That's
amazing.
Kind of the deal, right?
Always. Even back to Ohio State was that.
right, we got 2 games to pick.
Yep.
It's Chiefs. Steelers is first.
Kansas City -2.5 at Pittsburgh.
I said that I could tell you the show likes Kansas City -2.5.
Oh, and I certainly do too.
You do?
Yeah. I think this is a game that they got to get, right? I think they want to clinch that 1 seed, and obviously they get the bye, but I think they want as much time as they can to kind of reset, get healthy, and I still think they got some things to figure out with their team, right? Like with how they want to deploy all their weapons now that Hollywood Brown's back. Defensively, that other corner spot they got to get kind of figured out. Like, what type of rotation do we want to have with our defensive line?
Mm-hmm.
I think it gives them that runway to kind of sort some things out. I think they go and get this thing done.
Okay. On the road in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I'm going to read you a headline from 18 hours ago. Steelers Pickens has, quote, real chance to play on Wednesday.
That's going to make it tougher.
If George Pickens plays, you can put me down for a Steelers dub.
This is also a defense mechanism for me too.
What? Because you're going to make
with Kansas City, man.
Oh, and the 1 seed at play, and you're protecting I think you got like a 7-game lead and like the season pick 'em for you and I.
Well,
so I don't blame you.
They've won 14 of 15 games. I mean,
right, law of averages. I don't know. I think Pittsburgh's had a couple rough opponents back to back. This is another one, but them at home, if they get Pickens back, I think they're going to win the game because they're playing for an AFC North championship.
Yeah,
or the chance to have one. They've got a lot to play for, and short week at home. Get George Pickens back. Put me down. I'm taking the Steelers.
All right.
Ravens, Texans.
5.5. Ravens are 5.5 point favorites at Houston.
The show likes Baltimore -5.5 on the road. And I like the Ravens too in this one.
Yeah, dude. Ravens pass defense has really kind of found itself. Houston's now down tank. I know they got Deontay Johnson. It's probably too quick for him to really come in and make an impact. I think the Houston offensive line against the Ravens defensive line is a problem. I think the Ravens win.
I think the Ravens win. I think the Ravens win going away. Houston's really banged up football team right now.
Yeah.
And they got to kind of steady the boat and figure things out. And then you'll obviously have a home playoff game to lean on. And I just think the waves of injuries the last 2 weeks for them is going to be really tough to overcome. So the whole show's riding the Ravens. The show is riding Kansas City favorite on the road. Joe likes the Chiefs. I like the Steelers. We'll pick the rest of the games on Thursday as we get ready for the rest of the week. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys, as always, for checking out the show. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the holiday. Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. We will be back to talk to you all again on Thursday.